Hello and welcome to Constellation interviews for our upcoming conference in Virginia Beach, October 5th to 8th. You can find more information about the North American Systemic Constellations Conference at nasconstellations.org. My name is Linda Comeau, and today I have the pleasure of interviewing Yvonne Bright. Yvonne's workshop is Community Constellations, Shifting the Meta Pattern of the Environment in which you live, love, create, and manifest your life force energy. Welcome, Yvonne.
Thank you very much. It's good to see you again.
Good to see you, Yvonne. This sounds very exciting. I was really excited when I reread your description. So, tell us, how does your workshop work with our theme, Bridging the Divide, Healing the Personal and Collective Soul?
I will tell you about the very first one of these community constellations that I stumbled onto by magical accident as an answer to that, because it has a bridge right in the story. So what happened was I worked and lived in the east side of our county until a few years ago. And we don't mix with the people on the west side much, right? But I was doing a workshop in the city of Tacoma at the space of one of my clients who had a healing and yoga space. And I don't honestly remember how we fell into it, but the conversation began. It was supposed to be a normal night of constellations, family constellations, business constellations. And we just decided we were going to create a community constellation. The conversation just produced it for us. So out of the blue, we just did it. And how I kind of instructed the representatives to choose either their spot on the floor or what they represented. I kind of used what I've seen in Francesca Mason-Boring's nature constellations, where you kind of step in and find your place or your representative role. They're not assigned roles in any way. And so we just did. You have to know Tacoma's history. It is a history of, gangsters and outlaws. And there was a time when you were taking the train from Seattle to Portland that you were instructed by anyone who loved you that you did not get off the train in Tacoma if you valued your life. Very long time ago, back in the 40s. And so it wasn't much better than that about 30 years ago. I worked downtown about 30 years ago before I started doing what I do now. And we wore our tennis shoes from our cars to the office and then changed into our high heels so that we could run if bad guys chased us, right? So, yeah. And so I'm doing this constellation in Tacoma, and it's a lot of artists and small business owners, which I work with a lot of, and self-employed people, healers, practitioners. Right now I've got a bunch of pharmacists. It's the strangest bunch. And so we set this constellation, and it was amazing. And I didn't know Tacoma well enough, but the people there did. One woman was standing as something, and she had no feeling, no real thoughts, no anything. And we just went with it, right? And at one point, she fell down so hard on this hardwood floor that it shocked everyone. And then someone yelled. I mean, it was just like the Hindenburg or something. Someone screamed, "Oh my God, it's the Merino." And it was a building, a landmark that the city of Tacoma had decided to implode. And they had done that. And the community tried very hard to stop them and was unsuccessful. And she fell, and the whole room is sobbing, and I have no idea why, including me. Like, it was tragic, right? And so Tacoma is a port city. So across the port, which I'm looking at right there, is the port of Tacoma. And one guy was off to that end of the room, sitting down, kind of like he was in it, but he was refusing to participate. And finally he says, "Oh my God, I'm the port. If you people don't include me, I'm not coming along for this ride, and you cannot succeed without me." Wow. And we have something called the 11th Street Bridge that connects Tacoma and the port. And that thing had been out of commission for so many years, nobody remembered being able to drive across it. The port and the city were literally disconnected. And so we set this constellation, we brought it to resolution. It was the most magical night I've ever facilitated. It's kind of like Woodstock. Everybody claims they were there here in Tacoma, because since then, Tacoma has done amazing things. Like, we are rocking it. I mean, Tacoma is completely rejuvenated herself. The 11th Street Bridge is open. The port is crazy successful. In fact, Seattle is mad because we're taking so much business from them. Blah, blah, blah. I mean, Tacoma is like restoring itself like crazy. I now live and have my office in Tacoma something I never thought would happen. I personally take credit for this. I'm not kidding, right? So I'm thinking, I rocked this thing, right? So I'm gonna make up community constellations, and I'm gonna do a bunch of them. And I gotta tell you, Linda, they kicked my ass, because I went into it with all this personalized idealism, and I have never felt more inept as a facilitator. I've never walked away from the next one I did as ready to never facilitate a constellation again in my life. So PJ Curtis is Irish. I love Irish musicians, but he's an authority on rhythm and blues. And he says that all search for meaning is the search for the lost chord, the musical lost chord. And that when humankind discovers that lost chord, all discord in the world will be healed. And then the symphony of the universe will come into harmony, and we will be in accord. So my belief, because I love Irish writers, including PJ Curtis, is that every single constellation we set brings us one step closer to that accord. And so, not that one that I set, however, that second one, it was so bad. And I will tell you why it was bad. Again, I think I quoted her last time you and I spoke. Dorothy L. Sayers, from the early part of the last century, says that to aim directly at serving the community is to falsify the work. That your commitment has to be to the work itself, in our case, to the knowing field. That the minute you begin to serve the client or the community, you will falsify your results. And that is what happened against my will or intention in that second community constellation. Every political agenda, every personal agenda, every arrogant stance, every dishonest energy there was in the room, in the community, showed up. And facilitating it was like trying to organize a bunch of earthworms, and I sucked at it. It was bad, really. It was embarrassing bad. So yeah, Dorothy L. Sayers is my hero. She wrote an essay called Why Work that is profound. I think she probably wrote it in the 30s, and it's an amazing piece of work. She says the paradox in serving the community is this, that when humans are the center of anything, they immediately become the storm center of trouble. She doesn't say the shitstorm, but that's kind of how I look at it, right? Any human organization eventually becomes corrupt. It's only a matter of time. It's like the fourth law of thermodynamics or something, right? So she says the paradox is that if you aim directly at serving the community, you will fail. You will falsify the work. You literally have to forget the community and serve the work. And I was trying to serve the community. And so I was trying to find that chord my way, and it was not working well at all. So I didn't ever want to do another one. Ever.
Wow. So then what happened?
So I was sitting in my little meditation spot and checking Facebook because I didn't feel like meditating, and a Facebook post came up, and it was black background, very, very dire, with white words, and it said, "How do you stay positive when your world is crumbling all around you? Be honest." And I'm like, that's disgusting, right? Like, okay, having a positive attitude and sitting in the belief that the world is crumbling all around you, those two are mutually exclusive, right? If you really believe that you are in a world that is crumbling all around you, you are incapable of a positive attitude in that moment. You're capable of faking it, which is pretty much what my constellation looked like, right? There's a bunch of people faking it, right? Attempting to serve the community. And the be honest part just blew me away. Like, if you have to compel people to be honest, you are asking the wrong crowd, right? So I never do rude Facebook arguments, but I had to blast that one. I really did. I was not too bad, but yeah. But then it struck me that what I had done was attempt to improve a crumbling community rather than create the community that I wanted. It's the difference between setting the problem and setting the intention in a personal constellation. And so I believe that each of us literally creates or co-creates our world. I've seen married couples where one is living in prosperity and the other in scarcity, and they're living in the same house and sharing the same bank account. We really are, and it's not just attitude, like we're literally creating what is coming to us and what we're moving through. So then if I say my community needs improvement, then one, that's an arrogant stance. I immediately become perpetrator and rescuer in that moment, which rescuers are secret perpetrators. And then I have the community one down, and I'm trying to save a sinking ship instead of building a beautiful ship. And that was the difference. Then the next one I said, I was very picky who I invited. I didn't want the same people because we'd stepped into it poorly and I wanted to redo it completely. So if we are attempting to save the community, to improve the community, it's not going to work. If we are attempting to evolve and create and continually recreate ourselves, then we can then build that community. We literally kind of almost create it as we go. And that's all it was, is the difference in concept from improving my community to creating my community. And we forget the community. We never aim at the community. So I used to have an Appaloosa, a horse named Coster. I swear someday I'm going to write the book called Catching Coster, because you could never, ever catch Coster by going directly at him. I learned the deal. He was a mischievous 8-year-old in a horse body. And what I had to do was put a halter over my forearm, hold a little bucket of grain, whistle to make sure he knew I was casual, and walk anywhere but at him in the pasture slowly. And he would amble over, put his big old head in the bucket of grain, and I would slip the halter over his nose and he would wink at me. That is how you set a community constellation. You never look right at it, right? Because it'll get you. And so the paradox between creation and improvement is tough for humans, because the minute we do create something, we set about improving it. Parents do this, churches do this, governments do this. It's just like that. You've got to continually move between creation and improvement. And the minute you even realize you're in improvement, you need to leap back the other way and create again, recreate again. So holding that as the beginning point of a community constellation is the only way I don't suck at doing them. And that's why we do them this way. So if you attempt to become servant to the community, and there's an idea in our culture right now that those of us who have should definitely be serving the community, and yet there's a bite there. There's an arrogance in that simply will not fly. So you have to almost set yourself as. So what I do when people come into the community constellations is we start from a personal place. I sort of define the constellation community by who I invite. The one I'm doing in a couple of days is a business community, not a geographical community. And they don't get to come in and say, what do we need business to, how do we need business to be improved in our area? It won't work. They come in with their very, very personal need to recreate themselves and their businesses one more time. Because that's the only way any business stays in, is to recreate themselves one more time, from the burger shop on the corner to Johnson & Johnson. And so we start there. We say we're here for a community constellation. The word community is no longer allowed in the room, right? And we go from there. And we set it from a very, very personal place. Attempting, it is as impossible to facilitate the kind of community constellation I thought I was going to do to resolution as it is for a politician to please anyone. Certainly not everyone, because of just the nature of that. The minute you say community, people come in with should. This is what we should be doing. This is how our community should look. This is how you people ought to be acting. This is what our political agenda should be, even though I don't actually care. Whatever it is. And I am as apolitical as it gets. So this is right up my alley, because I don't want to deal with people's political or personalized idealism. And so that's basically how I got where I got. The bridge between Tacoma and the Port of Tacoma is now a solid thing. Every now and then, my office is only 3 minutes from my home now. And the 11th Street Bridge is out of my way, but I drive across the bridge and back before I come to work.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Super nice. I love the idea that we have to recreate. I once heard that if a marriage was to survive, every morning you have to get up and look at that person next to you and say, who are you? Who are you?
Yes, that you snore like that. Yeah. No, my husband and I had a deal when he was still alive that we could call a not married day, any day that we needed to. When you got that entrenched thing where you want to start improving it instead of recreating it, we had to call a not married day. And so it just meant, nobody called anybody to see what they wanted for dinner that day. Right. So yeah, no, you do. You got to keep it everything new, especially a business or a practice or whatever. It's so easy to get entrenched in saving the world and improving the world, which is why, and I have to say this, and please forgive me, Harrison Snow, but I am very disturbed to be in the social justice track. It's like what I'm doing is the opposite of what I think of as social justice. So I'm hoping to find that I'm wrong about how the rest of the world sees social justice. So Yeah.
Well, I think what's important here is the amazing distinction that you're making about improving, as you mentioned, is arrogant.
Mm-hmm.
And how many of us are running around trying to improve? Wow, I love this.
The minute I go to improve even myself, which people come to me because they want to improve themselves. And, so there's that funny paradox, but the minute you're there, you've got to start creating, right? And so that's how you know it's time to recreate. But the minute you decide that you need improving, that your community needs improving, you have just deemed yourself broken, wounded, intractably lost, a sinking ship. And that is very hard to come back from. When you're creating something new, there's energy and there's looking forward and there's what's next and there's curiosity. But when you're broken, when you're substantially inhibited, that's hard work. And that's how hard that first or second constellation was. It was like, I'm never doing one of these again. And then, Facebook intervened.
Creativity opened up for you. Oh my gosh,
It really
that is
did.
so cool. Wow, your workshop's going to be very exciting.
I hope so. I sure love doing them, but I do have to admit to anyone who's considering coming, it is a work in progress. And I have to almost remain there the minute I actually had a thought a couple of years ago that facilitating was so much more the field than it was me, that really I was just a representative of the facilitator. And it wasn't a bad idea when I had it, but within a year or two, there was a lazy thing going on, right? I wasn't catching the changes. I often think of life and constellations certainly as a bunch of old blues musicians, right? And a guy from the audience joins them and the old guy says, try to keep up with the changes, right? And so right? That's what, just play in the key of E and try to keep up with the changes. And that's what I think God says. That's what I think the universe, that's what I think life says. And in saying that I was no longer really a facilitator, but just the representative of the facilitator, I was not catching the changes that were showing up in the daily work. And so I got kind of sloppy. So, yeah.
Well, everything that's supposed to happen does happen, but really we are, the beauty of constellation facilitators is we're actually willing to experiment and hold the space to see what happens, to notice.
Yep, to continually be in beginner's mind and say, I don't have a clue how this is going to go, or even how this is going to begin.
That's right. Yeah, no agenda.
Right? That is, man, that's hard for me. That is not my natural way. And so Constellations has taught me everything I know about being amazing. So.
Oh, beautiful. Oh, Yvonne, that's so good. That's a great line.
I just made it up. Thank you.
That's why I love recording these. We have so many aha moments. Well, I want to thank you so much for taking time. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, I am finally looking forward to this. I have not been. And just in the last couple of days, it shifted like, okay, this is going to be fun.
Yeah. No.
And I am taking a few days after the conference to drive down the Blue Ridge Parkway to see some friends that are at the southern terminus. And I'm really looking forward to that. I don't get out to the East Coast much.
Right. Yeah. It's going to be a big change being on the East Coast, right? But I look forward to it too. Well, thank you again. I really appreciate your time. And for our audience, please check out our website, nasconstellations.org, for more information. If you haven't booked your shuttle from the airport, do so. You can check out some information on our Facebook page, the Constellations Conference Community. And thank you very much. I look forward to meeting everybody at the conference. Take care, everybody, and thanks again, Yvonne.
Thank you, Linda. And thank you for doing these. I really appreciate that you do it. I know it's a huge labor of love.
Yes, it's a labor of love.
Yeah.
Thanks very much, everyone. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
All right.
Oops.